So for instance, any of your listeners want to get into real estate and they haven't already, or want to make the switch into large multifamily, or want to do warehouses. I don't know what it is. When it comes down to it, we're the only people that can hold ourselves back. Yes, I know there's extenuating circumstances and situations. When it really boils down to the nitty gritty, who's really holding you back? Is it your bank account? Is it your mom or dad, your family, your spouse? No, it's you. You're holding yourself back.
Your network is your net worth. Come listen to some of the most successful people I know share invaluable knowledge, stories, and advice in real estate, business, and beyond. This is Weiss Advice. Whether you want to take your business or personal life to the next level, look no further. Welcome back to another episode of Weiss Advice. I am your host, as always, Yona Weiss, and with me today is the wonderful Pili Yarusi. What is going on today? Aloha.
Aloha. It is a bright and sunny day here in Tennessee, and I cannot complain. It is a beautiful day, and thank you for having me on.
Pleasure is all mine. I'm so grateful that you took the time out of your day to join me. When I see you guys, I always think of you and Jason together, because we did have Jason on the podcast quite a while ago. So if you guys want to check that out and see the yin to this yang, we'll after this conversation, you'll have a better idea of this power couple that are doing amazing things. So just to give a little background, I know you guys, Yarusi Holdings, so that's your company. You are real estate multifamily investors, but doing some other interesting things as well. And I'd love to get into all of that and hear how it is that you went from, just being a realtor. And I think when we first connected, it was like 3, 4, or 5 years ago, you guys were living in New Jersey, just selling some real estate and have some small multifamily. And now 1,000 units later, you guys are in a different place.
Geez, has it been that long? I feel like I've known you I feel like I've known you forever. So there is that. So honestly, Jason and I met as bartenders. I was a bar manager at this amazing waterfront bar that was on a barge in Chelsea, New York. It was on the Hudson River. And I remember I was 23, probably had no business managing this bar. And in walks one of my bartenders with his friend, Jason. And he's like, this is my friend, this is my buddy. We're going to do construction work together on the bar. Also, we all did the improvements to the bar ourselves. It was a very wonky little place. And we'll talk about that later. But he brings Jason in and he's like, oh, by the way, he can bartend too. I was like, great. Yeah, whatever. Everyone can bartend. Don't tell Jason, but he ended up bartending circles around me, and he became a good friend of mine. And then I left a few years later and I went to California. I come back to New York 4 years after that, and he's taken my job. So I get back in and I start helping managing again. We're butting heads. We're making friends again. And it takes us, and this is back, we met in 2003. We didn't actually get together as a couple until the late 2012. So we've known each other for almost a decade before coming together and finally really seeing each other. So the reason why I'm saying this is because this is sort of the genesis of how we became who we are today. I mean, we worked together as friends first, as colleagues, as people who were actually pitted up against each other because our mindsets are completely different in a lot of different ways. Our mindsets are the same in the ways that count, though. So when we decided to start our family, and this was 2013, and when Jason and I decided to do something, we do it quickly. Like a few months later, after we decided, I was pregnant and I was done with the restaurant industry, we started going into real estate because his family's construction company that lifts and raises houses. I'm sure Jason goes into all of that during his episode. Yeah. So I'm going to skip over that part just so you can go listen to that episode. So because of that, I get my real estate license. I start buying and selling homes. We start flipping homes. We get into wholesaling. And then from wholesaling, I start going to RIAs. I start meeting people, and I get introduced to a gentleman that's doing turnkey properties. I'm like, that's not for us. because Jason and I we'd like to be hands-on. We're not just going to give our money to someone. We are active investors. We just like it that way. We like to have some control.
Right.
But this gentleman's like, you have to take a look at what I have. So we took a look, we did the numbers. We're like, okay, we'll partner up with you. You can run the construction. You can be the all hands on deck. And these are all in Indianapolis. This is 2016. So it was perfect because it was the answer to what Jason and I needed, because we were too much like holding the hammer ourselves, doing all the work ourselves. If there had to be a toilet that needed to be changed, we do it because we knew how. And we had the construction company to back us up. So we get into this, we start doing these out of state properties. They weren't exactly turnkey because we weren't just handing our money over. We were actually managing the manager. Does this sound familiar?
Yeah, no, this is great.
So from then, like, Jason, and I'm like pregnant with our second child. And he comes to me and he's like, Pili, I've been like listening to Bigger Pockets and reading and talking to people. And people are doing this thing called like multifamily. And I'm like, isn't that what we already do? Because we had 2 duplexes at the time. I thought that was multifamily. He was like, no, imagine. So we have those 2 duplexes. Imagine if we could do 40 unit or a 400 unit. And I'm like, no.
Right.
Absolutely not. So at this time we have he was still running his brewery. We still had a restaurant in New York City. We had his his family's construction company. We had flipping, we had wholesale, and we just got these 2 duplexes, and I was pregnant with our second child. What do you think I'm going to say? But as with all things, number one, if you really want something, you go for it. And Jason really wanted this. So we learned and we grew. And that's how we got into large multifamily, by putting our heads together, putting our feet to the grindstone and just learning. And it took us 6 months to get that first property under contract. So that's how we got into multifamily, from, it's simply being bartenders, bar managers, to exploring real estate at a very, I don't want to call it basic, but I got my license to get the MLS. And that's how we got and moved forward.
Yeah. One step at a time. And I think what the amazing thing is that, like you said, it was a learning experience, and you guys continue to learn, right? You guys continue to grow, and to the point where now you guys, like we said, have over 1,000 units. You have made the move all the way to Tennessee, which is much further out from where you were. But I assume that has a lot to do with the real estate investing business. And you also have an event coming up, which is strictly for multifamily, the multifamily live event, which I'd love to promo that a little bit here.
That event is going to be epic. So that is coming up soon. We are getting and gearing up for that. It's a combination of all the learning, all the aspects of real estate that we've enjoyed, and we want to share it to everyone in a really big way. And this is going to be a huge live event here in Tennessee. It's going to be at the Gaylord Opryland, and I cannot wait to share our knowledge with everyone that's coming. We're going to have some special guests. It's going to be Jason and myself and our partners, Bill Allen and Chad. And we're going to just explore everything that multifamily has to offer.
And, I want to just switch gears a little bit here, because obviously you couldn't do any of this. I mean, you're raising a family, you're very family oriented, clearly. We can see anyone who's watching the video here from the beautiful pictures in the background. And you have this, kind of aura about you, being from Hawaii and living this Aloha thing keeps coming up over and over again. And I don't really understand it. And I figured I'd take the opportunity to give you the floor. Just tell our listeners, what is this? Lead with Aloha. What is this that's kind of leading your life and kind of leading your mindset?
So that's my personal motto. It's not even in my business. When I introduce myself to people, I usually say Aloha. So the word Aloha, I think the closest word that I've ever come to know in just world languages is like shalom. It's like an all-encompassing love and peace and all of that's good about me. I want to share with you, because I know if I share that with you and I enter a room with that and I project that, which is completely me, then I know it's going to come back to me, and probably come back to me in spades. So if I lead with aloha, if I lead and enter a room or an interview or Twitter spaces, what have you, if you enter with that love in your heart, then I think people are more likely to listen to what you have to say, because they know that you're coming from this amazing place. In the Hawaiian language, it's called like the na'au, like it's your gut feeling, it's your center. And if you come from that, if you explore all that you are, you bring that out, then the world and those around you will give that back to you in return. So that's what Lead with Aloha is about. Like, that's why when I say aloha to you, I'm not only saying hi, or if I say aloha and I'm not only saying bye, I'm basically saying love.
Yeah. And I love that. I mean, the analogy that you made with shalom, which also, it's a very similar concept in that it's used as a greeting or a salutation, but really that's not what the word means whatsoever, because there's so much more and so much deep. And it really means like completeness and wholeness and peace. They use it for that as well. But it is something where you're just opening yourself up and you're sharing that and hoping to connect with the other person's, inner core, that we're all really one and coming. So I really relate to that. That makes a lot more sense now that you've explained it that way, which I really never took the time to.
Well, the thing is, I love that we're talking about these two words, because I've made that connection years ago from living in New York City, and I forgot who told me what shalom actually meant. But since then, I've made that correlation, and people understand it then. They understand the correlation, why, like, that word, it doesn't mean hi and goodbye. It's actually no word for goodbye in the Hawaiian language. In Hawaiian, you say ahui ho, which means until we meet again. So there's actually no word for goodbye. So instead of saying that, I just say aloha, because then it's like love, I see you, love, until we meet again.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And really, it's amazing because when you bring that out, like you said, you come into a room with that. That's who you are. Okay, that's what you're projecting. And that's what you are, hopefully when you're projecting that, coming to a room or starting a conversation or whatever that is, the goal is to hopefully elicit the same response from someone, hopefully the person you're speaking to, but it will attract. And, those things do attract. And what the amazing thing is oftentimes in business, you're met up with opposing forces, right? And you have to kind of come to that common ground. I mean, you mentioned even when you guys were originally working together and with Jason, like I'm sure there were, opposing forces there. Somehow you came and had the right connecting factors. But can you talk a little bit about like what you do as a leader, meaning besides for the real estate investing, besides for the company, obviously being a mother, running a business, there's a lot of aspects, there's a lot going on, but you also take the time to kind of coach people and help people through like mindset and things like that. Like, is that something that it's just a natural thing or something you came into, and how does that complete your, who you are?
I think it's a little bit of everything, because we are past, we are present, and we're looking towards the future, right? So everything I am right now is everything I have been. So I'm bringing on all that is me. And then when we got into real estate, like definitely that's when like the mindset portion, I think that's when like the words mindset and mind shift and all these like key phrases that we use every day came into play. And I realized that people needed that. People need that cohesiveness, that aloha. I mean, really, it's to bring out the best in people and to let them understand that they can have this amazing mindset. They can have and do those things to get them on their way. But some people need it a different way. Some people need the systems and processes. Some people just need like a good, like somebody to like help them hold themselves accountable. I don't believe I can actually hold them accountable. I can help them hold themselves accountable, because you have to be responsible for your own actions. So with the mindset piece, it's about layering that on top of the education piece. So for instance, with multifamily, we teach multifamily with 7-figure multifamily, and you have to learn how to speak to people. You have to learn how to underwrite. You have to learn your markets. You have to learn all that is multifamily. But if you don't have that wrapped up in the wherewithal and the strength of mind to pursue it, and you don't have a coach or somebody that's with you, guiding you, and somebody that you know that you can go to and say, hey, Pili, this is happening in my life right now. What do you think? Or Pili, or even Jason, because again, different mindsets. And sometimes I talk to someone in our program, I'm like, you know what? You should talk to Jason right now. I think he'll be able to help you with this better. And having the wherewithal to know when to switch, that's what makes Jason and I such great partners too, because when people talk to us, they know if they talk to me, they'll get information a certain way. If they talk to Jason, they'll get information a certain way. And I believe people hear things differently. And sometimes you have to tell it to them 7 different times for them to completely understand the concept. So mindset and education together, I think, make a formidable team. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, I think it did, because I mean, really what you're saying, everyone hears some things differently and hear things differently from different people. So it really does have a lot to do with who we're hearing that from. And like you said, a lot of us everyone has challenges, right? Everyone has things we're going through and need help with, need accountability with, but also need kind of get through that, whatever that struggle is, kind of to break free from a lot of times just ourselves holding ourselves back, right? I mean, that's really, from what I'm seeing, just speaking personally, right? It's ourselves that are holding us back.
Yes.
There's nothing else.
We can be our own worst enemy. I think when we don't get what we really truly want. So for instance, any of your listeners want to get into real estate and they haven't already, or want to make the switch into large multifamily, or want to do warehouses. I don't know what it is. When it comes down to it, we're the only people that can hold ourselves back. Yes, I know there's extenuating circumstances and situations. When it really boils down to the nitty gritty, who's really holding you back? Is it your bank account? Is it your mom or dad, your family, your spouse? No, it's you. You're holding yourself back. So you have to dig deep and see if that one thing that you're going for is actually what you want. Because if you don't actually want it, well, why go for it? So you have to have these conversations with yourself. I know I'm not going to promote talking to yourself by any means, but you have to write these goals down and be on a scale from 1 to 10, how much do I really want it? If it's a 10, then do what needs to be done to get it done. But if it's a 5, then is it important enough to take time away from your family? Is it important enough to take time away from your spouse? And even with your spouse, have you asked your spouse, what do they want? Because maybe, just maybe, if you think your spouse is the one that's holding you back, maybe your spouse actually wants the same exact thing as you, but just in a different way, or he or she doesn't know how to voice that.
Right.
So it's all about communication. But yeah, it definitely starts with communicating with yourself.
Yeah, for sure. Oftentimes we just have to communicate, open that up, and the conversation will get to where we need to go. I mean, that's extremely important. Just to take it a little bit of a different direction, you had mentioned kind of in passing before that you guys are doing different things, obviously investing in some new types of asset classes and things like that. Tell me one, just if you would briefly, give me a little primer on this, what you're working on.
So 2017, and cryptocurrency and the blockchain has been around since I think it was 2008 when we had that crash. Those people got together, we had the blockchain, and then it went from there. I didn't know about all that. Didn't know about it back then. Coming to 2017, we dip our toes into it a little bit. We start investing in it as I wouldn't have even called it a math of our portfolio, but we just put a little bit of money there, money that we could afford to lose, and we just kept it there. End of story. Last year, people start talking about this thing called NFTs. And I see it, I'm just who would buy that expensive JPEG? I'm just going to right click or a screenshot, copy, paste there.
Right.
I got it. No, not so much. So what an NFT is a non-fungible token. There's one of them or maybe a few of them, but you have just that one asset and that belongs to you. So how we got into NFTs was through Gary Vaynerchuk.
Right.
So Gary decides to put out VFriends, and Jason and I are looking at this like separately. We don't tell the other one that we want to invest because we're still thinking to ourselves, expensive JPEGs.
Right. It's a little crazy. It's a little weird. It's new.
It's a little crazy.
And not a lot of people know enough about it yet, and basically anything Gary Vee does is a lot of times revolutionary. But the fact that he's going all in on this, I definitely see where this is going.
So what got us, though, was the utility of the thing. So you're going to hear the word utility. And now I'm saying it wrong. Anyway, you know what I mean. So there are NFTs that's just art. And I know some incredible artists out there. They have become good friends of mine. But with Gary back in the day, and I say back in the day, this is NFT time. It's like 6 months past, it's been 6 years, because it moves so fast. So when Gary did this drop, Jason and I saw it as they were convention tickets to us. Mm-hmm. He said, you get to come to 3 of my conventions, and this NFT is your ticket to that convention. And we're like, okay. So this makes sense. Like now there is value in this JPEG, which is basically, it becomes like a virtual ticket to us. It just became a virtual ticket. So we jumped into that with Gary Vee. We jumped into his Discord, which is where NFT communities are created in this platform called Discord, which is a very, very interesting title for a place to create communities. But hey, that's the name. Jump into there and just start meeting people and doing what we know how to do, which is just like I jumped in kind of full force, start to meet people, start to learn about other projects. I jumped into another project called World of Women. World of Women today just sold, today's the beginning of Women's History Month, just sold an NFT. And I think it sold for $450,000 for the one NFT. Don't quote me on that. I saw that information drop in Twitter just before I jumped on here with you. So there's money exchanging hands in this budding industry. And yes, not very many people know where it's going to go. But for me, and I know you said to do this really quickly, I can't. There's just so much information. But the last thing I'm going to leave you with is that an NFT is a tool. And if you see it as such, and you do the proper research, Gary says do at least 50 hours, and you do the proper research, you can use this tool. And that's what Jason and I are doing. We're using this tool to create a community and to do our own NFT drop.
Interesting. Okay. So there's, like you said, there's a utility function for some of these things. It's not just, art can be art, and art can be an investment in and of itself, right? Have something that's digital art makes maybe a little less sense for a lot of people. But when you look at it from a different perspective, that maybe there's a utility, there's a function going on, and there's more to it, it starts to make more sense. At least
when it comes down to it, everything in the world has the value that we put on it. So right now, these pieces of art, whether or not it has utility, it's the value that the marketplace has put on it. So if one day the marketplace decides, you know what, Gary Vaynerchuk, we don't believe you anymore, it'll go to zero. So, but is that what's going to happen? Or will this market keep on growing as more people flood into the market? Just from the moment I got into NFTs with Gary Vaynerchuk, just the marketplace has expanded exponentially. Like there are so many NFT projects out there, but you have to be careful, just like real estate. That's the other thing that we want to bring into this NFT world is how to invest correctly and with a real estate mindset. So it's the value that the market has put on it. So this JPEG of beautiful woman with blue skin sold for $450,000 just today. Wow. Because of what the market says it's worth.
It's definitely interesting. It's definitely something to keep an eye out for and to do some more research into, like you said, like spend some time, because it is a new, very new asset, class. And like you said, a lot of times the marketplace really does determine the value of things. So I appreciate you taking a little time and educating us on it. Definitely interested in learning more about it and try dig a little deeper. Really, like I said, anything that Gary Vee does is quite prolific. And I don't know, I didn't follow him when he's saying, you got to go full in on TikTok. I still haven't done that. So I don't know if I'm going to jump into the NFT thing quite yet, but
no, I don't have enough time for TikTok.
Exactly. Pili, I want to transition now to what we call the final four. These are 4 questions I ask to all my guests. And the first question is, what is the worst job that you ever had?
The worst job that I ever had. The only thing that comes to mind is one of my first jobs in college. So mind you, I had a full course of classes and I had 5 different jobs. I cocktail waitress. I was food prep. I was a cashier and I worked at the library. I even to today, I cannot stop being busy. I think the worst job was the food prep, although I really know how to cut a good fruit bowl.
There you go. So yeah, you learned something, that's for sure. Mm-hmm. There you go. But anytime you're working multiple jobs, that's straining, which is what you do anyways all the time. So
exactly. So nothing's really changed.
Learn to live with it. Okay. Second question. What's a book you've read that's given you a paradigm shift?
I think the hugest paradigm shift, and I quote it to this day, would be The One Thing by Gary Keller. I remember when I read that years ago when I first jumped into real estate, that was a shift for me because I like to call my brain a rainbow brain. I was never diagnosed with ADHD, but I have this tendency to be I'm a visionary, I'm a dreamer. I love to think of big ideas and write them down and then focus on them and then focus on the next thing and then the next thing and then the next thing. So when Gary Keller and Jay Papasan wrote this book and I read it, I was just like, oh, so if I focus all my energy on one thing and one thing only, you're saying that I can be successful? And that's when it hit that I needed to focus. So I spent years with that just being my key word, focus, focus, focus. And that's how I actually finally made the decision for us to really jump into multifamily, because I could have held myself and Jason back if I hadn't been supportive. But I was like, okay, then we are going to pivot. We're going to close our flipping and wholesaling businesses so we can focus in on multifamily. And that's just what we did. And that's what's brought us to today. So that was my paradigm shift.
Yeah, that's huge. And we've had many guests bring that up on this podcast because it is such a powerful concept when you're really able to hone that energy and focus on one thing and really focus on it. You can really just blow up, just go much further than you could have ever imagined.
Exactly. That's exactly what I do, especially when I focus my Aloha. Look out, world.
All right. Next question. What's a skill or talent that you would like to learn?
Actually, if I could learn how to write a smart contract, to actually learn blockchain technology, that would be epic. For anyone that's looking to get into NFTs, learn that. Learn how to become a developer. Learn how to code, because that world cannot exist without developers, without people who know how to code. So with as big of dreams and art and all this stuff that's becoming available to people, if you know how to code, you have that world in your hands. So yeah, maybe coding will be my next gig. That's
a really great perspective, especially with the ever changing world and landscape that we're becoming so much more digital. Yeah, that's a great idea, the skill. So good for you. And it can be done. I actually have a good friend, David Preo, was a guest on the show way back, and a real estate investor, and saw a similar thing a few years ago and decided, I'm going to teach myself to code. And that's what he did. He actually got a part-time job at a digital bank, and just that, enabled him to be able to, just hone that skill even more and push himself to actually work on it, because if you have a job, you have to do things as a coder, as a programmer, you have to continue that education. So that's what he's done. And that actually helped him scale his real estate business tremendously, because he was able to create automations and programs to just scale that. So it definitely is it's a great skill to have. Speaking from a secondhand experience, obviously.
I may have to look into it because I believe what I just said. Like the world is going to be in the hands of coders. Like all that's being built into Web3 or whatever you want to call it, coding needs to be a part of that. So with how much technology that there is today, it's just going to become exponentially more into the future.
Yeah. So fourth and final question, what does success mean to you?
Being able to just hang out with my kids. Like that's really it. To just hang out with my kids, have quiet moments with Jason, go to Hawaii, like just live. Like success is life to me. Like I could make a successful dinner tonight. That would be success. Or I could successfully take down 400 unit building. That's success too. So really though, like everything I do is for my family, and everything I do is to make sure that we're healthy and happy. That's where I was going with that. Healthy, happy, whole. And just the fact that like just being able to play with my children and not have to think about the business because we've got it to the point where it can be systematized. Not to worry about like, it's just hanging out with my family. That's success to me.
Yeah, I totally get that. And I love that because that's it. I mean, that's what we're here in the world for ultimately. And I appreciate your answer and your perspective and your time. Obviously, you are being pulled in multiple directions, both literally and figuratively. And I'm very grateful that you took the time out today. Pili, where can our listeners find you or reach out to you?
They can find all about us by us. Again, that's my husband and I, because we are partners in all we do. They can find us at www.yarusiholdings.com. All the information's there, links to seven-figure multifamily, to multifamily live. It's there too. And we'll also put a link to Legacy Leaders, which is the NFT drop that's coming up.
Very cool. Yeah, definitely check that out. And we'll put that in the show notes for everyone to check that out as well. Thank you again. This has been a pleasure catching up and speaking to you today.
Thank you so much, Yona. It's been amazing catching up with you, and have an amazing day.
Thank you. I will. And to our listeners, you guys have an amazing day too. And remember, until next time, the best advice comes only when you ask. Real quick, I have one question for you. Did you like this episode? If you did, I want to ask you a huge favor. See, the biggest thing that helps this podcast grow and that will spread this message to the whole world is that if you leave a review, a rating, and subscribe to the podcast. What that does is it basically tells the platforms that this podcast is out on is that you like my stuff and I'm doing something right. So take a few seconds out of your day, hit that subscribe button, leave a rating or review. I would be extremely grateful. Also, I want to hear from you guys. So I want to hear some feedback. If you have any questions for future episodes, please find me on LinkedIn. Send me a DM, a connection request, Yona Weiss, and I'd love to hear from you.